Hello and welcome to Feasting on the Word. Thank you for joining me. You're joining for the first time, it's great to have you with me. If you're joining after doing this many times or perhaps coming back to it, great to have you back, or great to have you as always. So Feasting on the Word is an ancient discipline, and we link ourselves into the rhythms of our faith as we undertake such disciplines. And it's a very simple one, which is part of what makes it so easy to approach. The idea is we take a little piece of scripture, just one little tiny piece, and we intentionally spend a little time with that by hearing that little piece of scripture more than once and interspersing it only with silence. The original name was called Lectio Divina. It's a Latin name, and it was used in monastic settings. We call it feasting on the word because it's likened to sort of taking a bite of the scripture the first time we hear it, and then kind of savoring its flavor as we hear it again, and then kind of really chewing on it as we hear it a third time, and then living with it as we hear it the fourth and final time. So as you heard there, we hear this scripture 4 times. I use 4 different translations of the same passage just to hear it a little freshly each time that we encounter it. We follow the first reading from the New Revised Standard with a minute of silence. We follow the second reading from the Message with another minute of silence. We follow the third reading, which is from the Contemporary English translation, with 3 minutes of silence. And then we conclude the discipline with the fourth and final reading from the New International Version. The longer period of silence is intended as a time for us to turn to God in prayer. So this is taking our experience of this scripture and how it has encouraged us or challenged us or confused us or whatever it might be, and to lift that in conversation with God in prayer. I find it helpful to have something to write with and something to write on nearby, so that way I can write down my impressions of the scripture as it is read through the first 3 times and use that as my source material, if you will, for the prayer, to inform that prayer, that conversation with God. So without further delay, let's get into the discipline for this week. The passage comes from the letter of James. So this is James chapter 1. We're reading verses 2 through 8, starting with the New Revised Standard Version. My brothers and sisters, whenever you face various trials, consider it all joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance complete its work, so that you may be complete and whole, lacking in nothing. If any of you is lacking in wisdom, ask God, who gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and it will be given you. But ask in faith, never doubting. For the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. For the doubter, being double-minded and unstable in every way, must not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Our second reading of James chapter 1, verses 2 through 8 from the Message. Consider it a sheer gift, friends, when tests and challenges come at you from all sides. You know that under pressure, your faith life is forced into the open and shows its true colors. So don't try to get out of anything prematurely. Let it do its work so you become mature and well developed, not deficient in any way. If you don't know what you're doing, pray to the Father. He loves to help. You'll get his help and won't be condescended to when you ask for it. Ask boldly, believingly, without a second thought. People who worry their prayers are like wind-whipped waves. Don't think you're going to get anything from the Master that way, adrift at sea, keeping all your options open. Our third reading of James chapter 1 verses 2 through 8 from the Contemporary English Version with our longer period of silence to follow. My friends, be glad even if you have a lot of trouble. You know you learn to endure by having your faith tested. But you must learn to endure everything so that you will be completely mature and not lacking in anything. If any of you need wisdom, you should ask God, and it will be given to you. God is generous and won't correct you for asking. But when you ask for something, you must have faith and not doubt. Anyone who doubts is like an ocean wave tossed around in a storm. If you're that kind of person, you can't make up your mind, and you surely can't be trusted. Don't expect the Lord to give you anything at all. Our fourth and final reading of James chapter 1 verses 2 through 8 from the New International Version. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Such a person is double-minded and unstable in all that they do. This is the inspired word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.